Today, Mr. Bones and I are going to teach you how to find your pelvic neutral. And so, while we're using Mr. Bones, and actually it's a good example, because he doesn't have a very good pelvic neutral, but what I want to show you is finding your pelvic position is super important at evenly distributing the weight and pressure and forces on your back, which I'll show you in a sec. So this is where we're going to be using our pelvis to do the motion, but when we move our pelvis, it affects how our lower back operates, okay? And as you know, the whole body is connected. This is a really important concept we teach in Back on Track, because if you can't master this, any movement you do, whether it's on the ground or standing or sitting, will be compromised. Okay, so we're going to use our pelvis to affect how our low back is stacked and how neutral it is. Okay, so we're going to start on the ground. It's nice and safe, neutral, and look, if you're like, damn it, I can't get down to the ground, no worries. Do you ever lie on a bed? Do it on your bed, okay? Make it work for you. Don't allow your circumstances or what you can or can't do inhibit you from trying these exercises, okay? So if you're on your bed or on the ground, the biggest thing is lie down in this position. So feet are flat, knees are bent, really relax. So what I'm going to show you is how our pelvic position affects our lumbar spine, and then how this will look when we're sitting and standing. We want to know how to find our neutral position. So before we do that, we need to know, well, neutral compared to what, okay? So I'm going to teach you anterior tilt. In anterior tilt, you're going to have your hands on your pelvis. Is when your pelvis, your hip bones roll towards your thighs, your hips stay on the ground. But watch what happens to my lower back as I do this. So as I anterior tilt, watch what happens. I have this giant arch in my back. Now, how many people do you see standing with an arch in their back, right? That means they're in anterior tilt. That's not good in the long term, right? So now we know where our end range of anterior tilt is. We want to know our posterior tilt. We're going to go all the way back, so roll our pelvis away from the thighs, and naturally what happens is there's now no space between my back and the ground, so it's flat on the ground. So again, find your max end range anterior tilt, then your posterior tilt, and can you guess what's next? Your neutral is halfway in between. So after you've kind of got through a few of these, you kind of understand the feeling, it's nice and smooth, don't go into pain, you're now going to find halfway between your anterior and your posterior tilt, and this is your neutral. This is meaning that every joint is stacked evenly, all the discs are stacked evenly, the muscles are working equally together to help distribute and resist any forces, right? AKA, your back is safe and it's in its strongest position. So from here, you're like, okay, great, Dania, but I don't just lie down all day. Yes, you got me there. So get comfortable finding it in this position first. It's nice and relaxed, you're not having gravity act against you. You can go through some ranges and then find neutral. Then from here, you can do an exercise and challenge yourself. Can you do a glute bridge and maintain this neutral? Or do you just arch your back or drop it, right? So once you feel comfortable lying down, the next point is to do seated. Which I'm gonna do with this guy here. So now you've mastered it lying down. I'm going to show you sideways. We're going to now work on seated. This is actually an exercise I do to help almost rejuvenate my back when I'm sitting for long periods of time. Now, how many of us just like sit like this and like text or read or like get really comfortable on Netflix watching the couch? There's nothing wrong with that for short periods of time. But when you're doing that for hours in a day, you think of when you sit for dinner, breakfast, sit at your desk for work, sit driving in the car, how many hours your back is spending in a not neutral position, combine that over weeks, months, years, and decades, your back over time is not going to feel very nice and give you, like, feel very happy, right? So we want to know, how do I come back to my home base where the joints, as you saw in Mr. Bones, and the discs and the muscles are all stacked equally working together in a nice, safe way. It doesn't mean you have to do this all the time. Our bodies are meant to move, but how do I find my neutral when I'm either in pain or I've realized I've been out of neutral for like hours, okay? So lying down, you've mastered. Now you're gonna do things sitting up. So you can do this anywhere, in your car, in your chair, at your office, on a bench, doesn't matter, the same techniques apply. So nice, long spine, imagine a string is pulling you up, which you can see. Okay, my ribs are gonna wanna be down, and I want to do the same thing. So whether you're on the edge of your chair or back a little bit, try and have your feet flat or supported on something and do the same thing. So anterior tilt, remember, is rolling my pelvis towards my thighs, arching my back. Posterior is the opposite. And this is like, you might feel like, oh, I'm engaging some muscles, your core. Maybe I'm feeling a bit of a stretch in my back. It's not a huge movement. The things I want you to be mindful of though are this. You're not trying to get the movement by your upper back, okay? So notice I can crank way more into anterior tilt with my upper back contributing. This is just an isolated pelvis motion. So my upper back should be still. So you shouldn't see my shoulders moving at all. It is all my pelvis just going through the range of motion, okay? We're targeting our lumbar spine and our hips. Once you've got that mastered, or you use that as a reset in your day, you then can apply it to standing, because this applies to everything. So in standing's a bit awkward, I'm not gonna lie. But I want you to think about this. If you're working out, if you are picking something off the ground, your kids, your groceries, if you're squatting down somewhere, to be in the safest position is in neutral, okay? So we've learned it on the ground, we've learned it in sitting, but our bodies are dynamic and they move. So anytime you're about to lift something up, whether it's weight, a deadlift, a squat, anything outside of just walking, you want to try and get neutral. And you should try and be neutral when you're walking anyways, let's be real. So to practice standing, you're just gonna have your feet underneath your hips, okay? And this is really good just for posture awareness, right? So again, shoulders are saying neutral, they're not gonna move with me. I'm lengthening through my spine, chin is tucked, and then hands can be on my hips. Have a very soft knee bend, but don't bend too much, because then again, you're having the lower body help. We don't want that. We want just this area to move. So anterior tilt is going forward. Notice how my back arches. How many people sit like this and stand in line in this arch position? A lot, especially as females. Okay, so arching, anterior tilt forward, and then posterior tilt. Anterior tilt, posterior tilt. And then find your halfway. And then you're set up for success for whatever movement you're doing. Whether it is a deadlift, whether it is a squat, you're gonna be in a nice, safe, stable position, which protects your back. It makes whatever movement you're doing way more efficient and stronger and safer. And now you know how to find your pelvic neutral lying down on the floor of the bed, seated in your car, in your desk chair, or standing, or before you do any other movement.